I'm Carla with Race to Walk, and these are just some thoughts on a Sunday. And what I do in these weekly updates is I share a few thoughts about different things, as well as give an update on where we're at in our efforts to help some Afghan Christians who escaped to Pakistan. And so I got involved in this because my friend Mark Ritchie asked me to help him teach some of his Bible studies that he had been teaching via Zoom in Pakistan, and he has been ministering. Really, he's ministered all over the world, but he's focused in Asia quite a bit. But he was a commodities trader by profession, but his avocation is really evangelism and training up the church. He has written several books, and maybe his autobiography is God in the Pits, and maybe by next week, I'm not sure if we'll get this done by now because I don't have the files yet, but maybe by next week you might be able to get a collection of his autobiography, God in the Pits, and his uh, advice on trading, which is my trading Bible. We're going to be doing a collection of those, a digital collection. So anyway, that's coming, but I'm not sure. Like I said, I don't have files yet, so I don't know how soon it will be ready. But then his friend Don, who has also done ministry in all over the world, Don Shire, joined in with us, and Mark's just been kind of, this freewheeling cowboy kind of person going around and just helping people where he sees the needs. Don is more structured, and he has a ministry called Don Shire Ministries, and so he has orphanages in different areas. He's done humanitarian efforts in like Ukraine, when just different places, and so he partnered with us in that uh, if he's accepting donations on behalf of this effort. So if you go to donshireministries.org and select Race to Walk, then those donations will go to help our people. And so that makes one of the things easier. Like, I don't have to worry about reporting or anything like that. I just tell Don, this is what we need and this is where to send it. And I give him the records or give him documentation for where money went, and then he takes care of the reporting and everything. So that makes it easy. So anyway, some thoughts for the week. As I've mentioned before, on Mondays I meet with the group of Afghan believers, and we do a Bible study. So in the beginning, we talk a little bit about where we're at with immigration and what we're working on, and then we go into a Bible study. And when Mark was doing this, he had a structured uh, curriculum that he was using, and he was taking them through the arguments for God in John chapter 1. And Mark has a background in apologetics. I don't know if he has an MDiv or what, but he was actually mentored by Norman Geisler, which, if you know who Norman Geisler is, he's a very big player in the field of apologetics. And Mark not only took, learned from him, but he was mentored by him. And so that wasn't Mark's profession, wasn't in missions, but that's where he's invested his money, so and his time, especially after he retired. So his focus when he teaches is always very apologetic oriented. And when I took over the classes in December, I thought it was just going to be for a break, and so we were just we went over Christmas and things like that. And then when I continued on in the classes, when the break went on longer than I thought it would, I really wasn't sure where we were going to go with this. What are we going to be covering? And so I asked them what they wanted to learn, and they said they wanted to learn about world religions and prayer. So we've covered a little bit about that. But lately, what we've been doing, really since Easter, we've been focusing more on the Psalms. And this week, we did Psalm 31, and this has been, it's been really cool to do these lessons because, I come from I was born into a Christian family, and I've been in church my whole life. And I'm in the U.S., where culturally, whether people are Christians or not, a lot of people think they're Christians or not, but it's culturally Christian. And I'm in a Bible study with people who are, on the other side of the world, and they have very different experiences growing up. They grew up in a Muslim country, and they're in very different circumstances than I am. And so it's really interesting to hear their insights and what stands out for them. And so when we started on this, I had three different passages that I was sharing with them that were, to me, they were encouragement from God. I have this little notebook where I have verses that are topical, and those three passages are three passages that I just go to when I need to read words of encouragement. And so from this chapter, Psalm 31, the verses that stood out to me were verses 19 and 20 in Psalms 31. And let me go down and find this. Okay, so verses 19 and 20 are, how great is the goodness you have stored up for those who fear you. You lavish it on those who come to you for protection, blessing them before the watching world. You hide them in the shelter of your presence, safe from those who conspire against them. You shelter them in your presence, far from accusing tongues. So that was my highlight from verse 31, or chapter 31. But then we read the whole chapter, and I asked them what was meaningful to them, what stood out to them. So I thought this would be different this time. Rather than my thoughts, I'm going to share with you their thoughts about this passage. So keep in mind, this is for context. I don't know exactly when this was written, but it's a Psalm of David. And David was, for years, he had been anointed by Samuel, promised to be the next king of Israel. He was faithful to Saul. Saul betrayed him. He was faithful to his friend Jonathan. Jonathan betrayed him. And so David was on the run for years. He was in hiding. He had to go in among his enemies to escape Saul. And so a lot of these Psalms were written, it wasn't what had already happened. It was, especially like when I read Psalms 23, it's David proclaiming what he has faith in God to bring about. And this is when you read it, it's like David is in a hard and difficult time, and he's writing this as a reminder to himself, and it's a proclamation that God is going to come through and be good to him. And so then the people in Afghanistan or in Pakistan are also in exile. They're on the run. They have to be cautious around everyone, not only just because they're Afghans in Pakistan, but also because they're Christians in a predominantly Muslim country. Some of them have already been beaten. Most of them have lost family members to the Taliban. Even in Pakistan, again, some have been evicted and had to find other homes because people found out they're Christians. So anyway, so keep this in mind as I'm reading this. Oh Lord, I have come to you for protection. Don't let me be disgraced. Save me, for you do what is right. Turn your ear to listen to me. Rescue me quickly. Be my rock of protection, a fortress where I will be safe. You are my rock and my fortress. For the honor of your name, lead me out of this danger. Pull me from the trap my enemies set for me, for I find protection in you alone. I entrust my spirit into your hand. Rescue me, Lord, for you are a faithful God. I hate those who worship worthless idols. I trust in the Lord. I will be glad and rejoice in your unfailing love. For you have seen my troubles, and you care about the anguish of my soul. You have not handed me over to my enemies, but have set me in a safe place. Have mercy on me, Lord, for I am in distress. Tears blur my eyes. My body and soul are withering away. I am dying from grief. My years are shortened by sadness. Sin has drained my strength. I am wasting away from within. I am scorned by all my enemies and despised by my neighbors. Even my friends are afraid to come near me. When they see me on the street, they run the other way. I am ignored as if I were dead, as if I were a broken pot. I have heard the many rumors about me and am surrounded by terror. My enemies conspire against me, plotting to take my life. But I am trusting you, O Lord, saying, You are my God. My future is in your hands. Rescue me from those who hunt me relentlessly. Let your favor shine on your servant. In your unfailing love, rescue me. Don't let me be disgraced, O Lord, for I call out to you for help. Let the wicked be disgraced. Let them be silent in the grave. Silence their lying lips, those proud and arrogant lips that accuse the godly. How great is the goodness you have stored up for those who fear you. You lavish it on those who come to you for protection, blessing them before the watching world. You hide them in the shelter of your presence, safe from those who conspire against them. You shelter them in your presence, far from accusing tongues. Praise the Lord, for he has shown me the wonders of his unfailing love. He kept me safe when my city was under attack. In panic, I cried out, I am cut off from the Lord, but you heard my cry for mercy and answered my call for help. Love the Lord, all you godly ones, for the Lord protects those who are loyal to him, but he harshly punishes the arrogant. So be strong and courageous, all you who put your hope in the Lord. And so when we finished, the translator said, it talks all about our situation. And it does. It's exactly about their situation. And he said, we have to continue to put our hope in God. And that's one of those things that I have to keep reminding myself, because it's just, I don't know, this has all been a learning experience. The beginning is so overwhelming because I don't know anything about it at all, and just learning as I go. And it's just, it was so intense, and I had to go back to Afghanistan because the whole visa thing, and it was just really intense. And I realized just yesterday I've kind of gotten used to being in that state of tension, like just kind of always like being on edge, like wondering, okay, what's going to come next. And as we've been going, we've had things happen, and I realized, okay, I didn't make this happen. I mean, in the beginning, I knew, okay, I was like, okay, God, you're going to have to make this work because I know nothing about this. But then I start getting into this thing like, okay, yeah, these things are working. And like, I don't know. I feel like I start feeling anxious about it. But anyway, this is what they said. So this is one person said I think she's in her 20s, but she said, if a person accuses you, you must be with God. And when we're with God, we have the life of God in our hearts. And believers and non-believers can be in the same circumstances, but the difference is when we have God with us, it's Emmanuel, right? God with us. God is in our hearts. The life of God is in us. And then this next one is the wife of the head of one of our house churches, and they're a family of 9, and they have one of their sons has leukemia, and she's actually has something going on. She's been having headaches, and we just had to send money to get an MRI for her. So they don't know what's wrong yet. But anyway, she said she said we trust in God as a Father who's so kind to us. And she talked about when Hagar was out in the wilderness and she needed help, and she called out to God, and God heard her and helped her, gave her what she needed. And in that passage, Hagar called God El Roi, the God who sees me. And so that was a good reminder. If God does see us, He does hear us, and you just have to remember that. And I have to remind myself of that because things get overwhelming. But anyway, so those are my thoughts for this week, or their thoughts this week, their thoughts on that passage. And so anyway, that's a little bit about what we do in our Monday Bible studies. But moving on to what is going on in Afghanistan. So this is a update from Steve Jensen. He's somebody that I share his posts frequently. He's writing a book on the history of Afghanistan. And just as a side note, I do this live, but then like the next day or so, I was late this last week, but the next day or so, I will publish an article on my website at racetowalk.org for this live stream, and then it will have all of the links to what I'm talking about and the tweets and the articles and everything. Originally, when I started, I was doing it just in the YouTube description, but there's just got to be way too many. So now I have all of the updates that I've done here. I have everything I'm referencing there. So if you want to know what I'm talking about and want a source for it, you can just go to that and I'll have it all there. But anyway, so what he's pointing out in this graph here, there's a chart of the Taliban attacks. And what he's showing is that in 2020, the year of the Doha Agreement, after the Taliban were supposed to stand down and not attack anymore because we supposedly had this agreement, was never, the host of the Generation Jihad pointed out that it was never a peace agreement. It was just us basically, giving the Taliban everything they wanted. But they, that year, they had more attacks by the Taliban than any year in the past. And so the Taliban never held up to, in any way to the Doha Agreement at all, or even what people think the Doha Agreement was about. But as people have pointed out, the Doha Agreement actually didn't constrain the Taliban in any way at all, other than at all. So the fact that there were more attacks did not break the agreement on their part. But if you hear people saying we had to withdraw, otherwise they would have attacked more, that's completely bogus because they attacked more anyway. So anyway, so this is one thing that was interesting. I saw this, I think it was yesterday. It was in Persian. I translated it, and it says that, and the translation is not great, so I really couldn't tell what it was, but it was saying that the government agencies in coast have been cut off from the flags of the emirate, and the network is not working for 24 hours a day. So I really wasn't sure what that meant, but it sounded like something. And then I came across, this was just this morning, I saw that Lark Escobar at Lark Abroad had basically reiterated this, that there were several reports that Taliban flags had been removed from buildings and that cellular communications were down, and that they were no longer flying the flag of the Taliban government. And then also this morning, there was Steve Jensen posted that one of the leaders in the Taliban army has joined the NRF, which is the National Resistance Front. They're basically the only group standing against the Taliban right now in Afghanistan. He's joined them, brought troops and equipment. So that was interesting. Other interesting one I saw just this morning was that one of the speeches that one of the Taliban spokespersons said that they were saying something about drones flying over Afghanistan and telling the Pakistan not to allow anyone to use their airspace to fly over Afghanistan. And so we had some of the people of our people in Pakistan, the Afghans in Pakistan, at my Bible study this morning at my church. And afterwards, I asked them if they'd heard anything about that, and they said, "Oh, it's always Pakistan. Pakistan's always involved in things like that," and they didn't really think it was. He said things like that happen all the time. So they didn't think there was anything unusual, but it sounds to me like there might be a little bit of something going on. So I don't know. But anyway, that's today in Pakistan. And just as a reminder, the Taliban are terrorists and thugs. This last week, this is just a little brief overview. They were confiscating and burning musical instruments because, that is just so dangerous. Also, this is a video of women who were protesting, and I think this is over. The Taliban closed salons last week. I don't know. I mean, they're in these like full-on burqas anyway, and then they can't even go to salons. But they were going and they're protesting. They were spraying them with water hoses and firing above their heads. And if you go to I'll have a link to that post where you can watch the video if you want on my website. Also, they in Herat, they were assaulting women for not complying with the dress code. Really sounds a lot like Thea Rose here, just a little bit farther, and they're exactly the same. So this is a former person in the former government was captured and tortured. Again, that is, I'm pretty sure that's I don't know if the Taliban agreed to it, but supposedly, like in Biden's speech, he said that the Taliban, like our ally, anybody who wants to leave Afghanistan would be able to, and that the Taliban would attack our allies. They've never done that. They always have. It's completely ridiculous. Another one, the Taliban will not allow women to take the medical exam. So there are women who are, ready, who have had gone through all their training, who are ready to take their exam, and the Taliban won't let them. Also remember that men are not allowed to treat women. So basically, if you're a woman in Afghanistan, you can just forget medical care, I guess. I don't know. Then this is another one. There was a video of a guy who was from Korea saying, "Oh yeah, it's great to come to Afghanistan for tourism," and it was another propaganda thing. I'll get to another big propaganda push that happened this last week. A huge deal, but the person posting this said he's not Korean, he's Pakistani, and which if you can't see on this, but if you go to my website and actually look at this, what I'm going to link to, it is pretty obvious. But anyway, so other news, the Taliban has abolished the Attorney General's office in Afghanistan. And this is after, in 2021, they took over the Independent Bar Association. So they control the so-called justice system, which kind of reminds me of what it's like in Texas, considering that we have, as our Attorney General, are very much indicted and investigated, Ken Paxton, who has been impeached, but still, he raised $1.7 million in 2 weeks after he was impeached. So completely ridiculous. Please tell me what is different about Afghanistan and Texas. I really don't know. And then to add to that, so Dan Patrick, there was a group that gives him $3 million to that also backs Paxton. And then after that, Patrick issues a gag order on everyone that's involved in the impeachment trial. Patrick is going to be presiding over it. Is that not the most ridiculous thing you've ever heard? Like, completely corrupt. Okay, but going back to Pakistan. So this is post that Iowa and Pakistan did. And they just like posting this like, oh, we're just discussing what we can do to help the mental health of Afghans in Pakistan. It's like, okay, I have a suggestion for you. How about letting them register as refugees so they can get medical care, they can actually like live somewhere legally, because they have to register with the police. They have to have a visa to be able to get housing, and then they have to register with the police. Okay, so how about that? How about you let them register as refugees, and then their kids would be able to go to school, and they'd be able to work and also get medical care. I'm sure that would go a long ways to helping their mental health. So the other thing, this week there's reports of Crimean Congo and Pakistan. Not good. Also, this is another thing. It's like everybody, it's like they know the Taliban are terrorists and thugs, but they don't want to admit it and they don't want to do anything about it. So they just whitewash them instead, including the UN. And this was a couple of posts about, well, the way this person is presenting it, there's basically plotting to kind of make the Taliban look better than they are. And this disgusting thing, it was like a conference on women's issues, which is, oh my gosh, that is just unbelievable. Okay, but the big news of this week regarding Afghanistan, there was this guy, I can't show you the video because he took it down, but there was this guy, Tobias Elwood, who did a video saying that the Taliban had transformed the country, that they had eliminated corruption and got rid of the opening production, which is again total crock. They said the same thing last year, and production was up 32%. A huge backlash, and then he apologized. But this is some of the backlash. I'll have links to all of these on my website. This guy is talking about, like, basically Elwood's been hired as satire, obviously. Elwood's been hired as the new spokesperson for the Taliban. This person saying that she's like, he needs to take it down. She's like, I just got photos of 3 people who have been killed by the Taliban, and I think it was a 3-year-old whose arm has been broken. I mean, it's just, they're just terrorists and thugs. They're just horrible. And this is, just more, oh wait, the wrong thing, more backlash. So then he takes it down. He apologizes, and he actually, this is a shocker. Somebody says something that's stupid. I mean, I know England has their problems too, but they actually were going to remove him from his position in Parliament because of just the ridiculousness of what he said. Imagine if that happened here. Oh yeah, we can't even get rid of the seditionists. So anyway, so this is indirectly related, but this is directly related to U.S. immigration. So Texas, we have Greg Abbott as our governor, who is totally sold out. I mean, he's bought and paid for. And so in order to, like, garner up support, one of the things he does, he just panders. He just goes and tries to rile up people based on propaganda and ignorance. So he goes and makes a show about putting up razor wire along the Rio Grande River, which is what separates the U.S. from Mexico. So there's that. So just that alone is an issue, because number one, it's destroying the riparian zone along the river. It also, one of the articles, it talks about how the animals can't get down to the river. There was a guy who does has a canoeing business or something like that, and he was filing a lawsuit against Abbott because he's blocking his access. And so all of this, it's not just, it's destroying the ecosystem in addition to the humanitarian aspects of it. That is bad enough, right? And considering all the issues that we have with our water in Texas, like we need to be doing more. I mean, I don't understand why people are so unbelievably oblivious to how things interact. And this is just a side note. There's a state park down at Brazos Bend. Is that right? No, it's south of Houston, Buffalo Bayou. I'll have to link to it in my article. I don't know. Anyway, it has this really, and I've been there. I'm not sure. I might be getting the name confused. Anyway, they have this really cool nature center where they show how the everything interacts in the ecosystem. And what's really cool about that, where that park is, it's like 4 different types of ecosystems intersect there. So you can just kind of, and they'll show you like the wetlands and these different things. And we actually camped there one time, and my girls were freaking out because they have alligators. They ended up really liking it. There's an observatory there too. So anyway, but going back to Abbott, but beyond just the fence, what he's done is, this is just completely disgusting. They put barbed wire in the river itself, in these strategic points where they're trying to funnel people who cross the river there to these more dangerous spots where they're drowned. There was a whistleblower that came and said that, I'll just read this. So this is an email. The email highlights several distressing incidents witnessed by the trooper. In one instance, a pregnant woman was found caught in the razor wire, experiencing excruciating pain as she suffered a miscarriage. Another incident involved a 4-year-old girl who had fainted due to heat exhaustion after attempting to traverse the wire, only to be forcibly pushed back by Texas National Guard soldiers. Furthermore, a teenager fractured his leg while navigating the water around the wire and had to be carried by his father. The trooper's email also revealed that Texas had strategically placed razor wire wrapped barrels in certain sections of the river with high water levels and low visibility, effectively setting what they referred to as traps. This dangerous setup has inadvertently compelled migrants to venture into. So I'm going to show you the rest of these, and then so what's going on. Abbott's basically saying, we'll do what we want. I'm not going to listen to anyone else. Beto is like asking Biden and the Justice Department to get involved and investigate it. The Justice Department is actually investigating, but Abbott's saying, I'll do what I want to do. And it is just, this is the thing about that whole situation. So one of the most, I don't know, I would say one of the most disgusting things, but I've seen so many disgusting comments posted by, I don't know. I mean, all I have to hope for is that they're bots and not actual people, because some of the comments I've seen are completely and totally disgusting. But I'm just going to cover some of the things that aren't like the worst of it, and it's just straight up ignorant. So one of the comments I saw repeatedly was like, oh, well, there are 29 points of entry and they can go to any one of them and they don't have to cross a river. Okay, number one, that just tells me that you have no idea really what the situation is. So first of all, most of the people that come to the border in that way are asylum seekers. And yes, they should be able to come to the border and present themselves. However, there are several things that prohibit that. So first of all, in January, it changed so that people could only present themselves at the border if they had made an appointment with this CB1 app. And there are only a very limited number of appointments available on the app. And I've come across an article talking about an Afghan who flew to Mexico and had been waiting for a year in a camp trying to get one of those appointments and still hadn't been able to. So when I first started these updates a few weeks in, I talked about one of the cousins of one of our people in Pakistan, and he had gone to Brazil and then come up through the southern border, and he had contacted me when he was in Mexico, and I was trying to find help for him in Mexico, and then didn't hear from him for 2 months. And what happened, he had gone across the border and then presented himself to Border Patrol, and they arrested him. And if you read stories, like I read another article about the Chinese who have done the same thing, come in, they cross the border, and then they present themselves to Border Patrol to get asylum. And I was like, why did you do that? Because why didn't you present yourself at the border, not knowing that they had to make an appointment through the app? And so that was a way to present themselves to do that. The cousin that I'm talking about, the reason he was missing for 2 months was because he was arrested and he was in a detention center, CoreCivic detention center in Mississippi for 2 months, and then somehow he got to New York. I have no idea how that happened. They don't always. Language barrier is a serious thing. So now he was released and he has humanitarian parole. I've been trying to get an update on what he's doing because I don't really know exactly what that means. But the thing is, in May, what he did would not actually even be an option anymore, because after the Title 42 and the COVID restrictions expired, Biden implemented a new policy of, if someone does not apply for affirmative asylum, like apply ahead of time for asylum before they come, or make an appointment at the app or with the app, then their application is automatically going to be denied. They have to apply for asylum first in the first country they come to. So for now, if that Afghan, if he hasn't already made it through, that I was talking about, that had flown from probably Afghanistan, gone to Pakistan, flown to Mexico, if he didn't apply for asylum in Mexico and get rejected, he can't even apply for asylum. And so all these people that are coming through the border that way, they're probably just going to be automatically rejected anyway. I mean, I don't know for sure, but I mean, just from what I'm reading about the stories, I think that's what it sounds like to me. And there's, all these international agencies like the UN, International, or Amnesty International. There's another one, IRCC or something like that. But they've been condemning the Biden administration and the U.S. for this, because we've basically denied the right to claim asylum. So Abbott is saying, oh, we have to do this. No, you don't. Our policies already are pretty not good. They're not immigrant friendly. And under the current policies, pretty much all those people that he's torturing as they're trying to come across the river, they would be deported anyway. So he's just doing this straight up to be sadistic, because he's a jackass. And I don't even think he has any sort of conscience left. He's just it's just utter evil. And the reality is that he's doing this because, again, he has to deflect and try to make everybody else the bad guy rather than himself, because he is so sold out to, big money donors, that for the rest of Texas, we're actually like the last in the U.S. as far as quality of life. And this is a true story. And if he wasn't so sold out and wasn't just continually like undercutting the regular person at every single turn, then he wouldn't have to go through these. I don't know. The fact that anybody would vote for him when he's just this cruel and vindictive person is disgusting to me. But I don't know. This is just where we're at. There's just no words sometimes. But anyway, moving on from that. I can't even explain to you, when I look at things like that and just think about some of my people being involved in that, it's so stressful. And then the other thing that just drives me crazy is when I hear people talking about open borders. Shut up. You have no idea what you're talking about. If there are these open borders, please send me an email. Send me an email. at Contact at Race to Walk and tell me where these open borders are and how it works, because I have people that need to come through them. So please let me know how that works. But no, you're not going to be able to, because they're not there. But this is what's just so infuriating to me, is that, people in these other countries that are absolutely desperate, they hear the same things. They hear these jackasses on Fox. They hear all this squawking about open borders on Twitter and social media. Like people that have no idea what they're talking about, and they think it's true. They think it's true. And so then they make a life-altering decision, risking their lives to come to a place where they think they might be safe and have hope. And then this is what they get. So anyway, no, there's no such thing as open borders. Shut up. Shut up. You have no idea what you're talking about. But anyway, that just aggravates me. Moving on from that, what have we been doing to fulfill our promise to the Afghan people? Not a whole heck of a lot. There was a report, Lark Escobar actually posted this, but this is how many SIV applications we processed. We processed a total of 1,903 applications, and that for total people as a whole, including their family, was 7,750 people. Okay, that may sound like a lot, but we have 69,000. What? That's not right. Okay, I think that's 69,000 applications. Obviously, looks to me like the number, there's a typo in that, but it's 69,000 applications. So do the math. How long is it going to take for us to process those? So part of the issue with the SIV applications, they have, let me go back to it. I've shared this before. SIV applications, or special immigration visas, are for people who worked directly with the U.S. troops or government. And where is it? Okay, this is the application. So this is a whole long application, and it starts at that step 1 is COM approval. Okay. So what they have to do is for like interpreters, and people that worked with the troops and stuff. So they have to submit the application with all their documentation, and they have basically outsourced. They've got contractors to review the applications to make sure all the documentation is there. And one of the things that they have to have is they have to have a letter of recommendation. And one of the difficulties in that was that originally it said it had to be with the senior most person in the organization, the American in the organization, in the contracting organization that they worked with. So for our families that are the siblings of our translator, the lady that had been translating for us is a U.S. citizen that lives in Washington State. Her siblings worked for IDS International that would not, just kind of basically ghosting him, wouldn't respond to the request for a letter of recommendation. So one of the brother-in-law actually got a letter of recommendation from the head of the Afghan contracting company. So IDS International had the contract. This Afghan company was doing the work. He got the letter from the Afghan person, which I guess they had loosened up the requirements, and so that was acceptable. And so his supposedly moved to COM approval. The brother, I don't know why he didn't have the same thing, but his wasn't. What I've been hearing, and I'm not sure about this, is that if once it's at COM approval, if they can't talk to the person, the supervisor that wrote that letter of recommendation, their application isn't going to go anywhere. Which, this is the thing. If they're not going to, if you say, oh, okay, yeah, we can have a letter here, you can get a letter from the company that you actually work for, your direct supervisor, if it was an Afghan company, just to submit the application. But then when it gets to COM approval, they don't. That's not going to fly. That is really one of the most sadistic things that I've ever heard of, because again, people are making life-altering decisions thinking that they may have that's a path, that's a viable path for them. If it's not going to work, just tell them no to begin with. If you cannot, if they're not going to, if you can get the application in, but you know it's not going to go anywhere, if they don't have that U.S. citizen that can vouch for them, then just don't even take the application, because people are placing their hopes in that and they're making decisions based on that. And that is just as cruel as what Greg Abbott is doing at the Texas border. Anyway, so that was that. Also, I think I mentioned that there's actually been court cases that the Biden administration was trying to get vacated because the judge said you need to speed it up, the SIV applications. So this just came out last week. They're putting out bids for companies that can do those verifications of the applications. It's what I read in the actual article. It said that they wanted like a company that could do 500 a month. That's not enough. We should be doing like 5,000 a month. We should should be like flat on, do it and get it done. This is just not acceptable. And this is only the SIV applications. Can you believe this? So anyway, at least there's some sort of movement there. I don't know. And then the other thing, it's kind of a bummer. There was a portion of like a defense bill that would have helped some of the SIV applicants. It would have provided more visas. It would provide a direct, I can't remember all of the things, but there were several things that would have helped the situation in that defense bill. And Grassley basically shut it down. And his excuse was that he had security concerns. Okay, these are people who worked with the troops. They were vetted on the front end. And basically what you're saying is that you don't think that the military can vet people. Anyway, that's ridiculous. So anyway, that was that. But there's the Afghan Adjustment Act has been submitted again, so hopefully that will go. But anyway, as far as our people, what was I going to say? Oh, I can't remember if I talked about this week or last week. There was a Canadian employment visa, is expedited employment visa for refugees, but the requirement is it has to be like they have to have experience or education in a certain area, and they have to know English, and they also have to they're supposed to have the UNHCR designation, but if they don't have it, there's 3 organizations that will certify them as refugees. So there's a thing around that. I was checking with one of our people, he's a dentist. He went through, he qualifies for it, and he's studying now for his IELTS exam to test his English proficiency. If he gets a 6 on that, then he'll be in the pool to be recommended to get an invitation letter. So that's a possible one for him. There was also Germany is also changed immigration laws to allow educated people and people with experience to come and give them a year to find a job. So Canada and Germany are actually kind of with it, realizing, hey, we need professional people, we need workers. I guess everybody is the same thing that the U.S. is always complaining about, not enough people. And so they're doing what they can to bring these people in. Again, they have to know, in Germany, they have to either know German or English. So we were talking about that on Monday, and the importance of getting English up to speed. And so we are working on that. We actually are, I can't remember if I mentioned this last week. We have some scholarships for some of the people to take some English classes. And I did talk about this last week because I think I misquoted it. So I said last week it was $50 for tuition for someone to take English classes for 3 months. It's actually $25. I think that what I had in my head, I was thinking husband and wife. Because that's the other thing I've been telling him. The whole family needs to learn English. Everybody needs to be ready to, work together to rebuild their lives. So we're just stressing that. And I told our translators I'm going to keep stressing it. I'm going to say it every week. Either decide you need to learn English. Everybody does, or just figure you need to find a way to get residency in Pakistan or go back to Afghanistan. Those are the options. If you want to immigrate, you need to learn English. So I think that's it. I think there's some other things I was going to talk about, but I can't remember what they were. But yeah. So it seems like, I don't know. It seems like things are shaping up, and there's another thing that we're working on. I don't really want to say yet. It's still in the beginning phases, but when we first got involved in this, I knew it's going to take a lot of people to be involved. It wasn't going to just be one or two people. A lot of people we needed a lot of help. But also in December, I knew it was more than just being about that group of people, those families. That was beyond that. And I kind of had an idea of something, but I didn't know how it was going to come about. And I think that is actually coming now. I can see what that is. And again, it wasn't really something that I initiated. It was something that some of our people initiated, but we just need to find the resources to make that happen. So I don't know. We'll just see what comes next. We'll see what comes next. But anyway, again, if you'd like to help any of our people out, you can go to DawnShireMinistries.org and select Race to Walk and donate there. But I will have an overview of, I have an article on my website at racetowalk.org of this live stream and with all the links to everything I was talking about. So anyway, thanks for watching. I hope you have a great week and that you're able to do some good. See you next time.